Good evening and welcome to CYC News for today, the 20th of September 2015 and the 9th of Tut 1732 AM. I'm Angie Victor. In today's headlines, the US looks on warily as Russian helicopters arrive in Syria. His Holiness Pope Tawadros II starts his pastoral care visit to Europe. Obama says the US must do more to aid Syrians. Syriac Catholic Patriarch of Antioch says the Western nations betrayed us. How it all went wrong for Australian former Prime Minister Tony Abbott, and the experimental Ebola drug ZMapp gets fast-track status from FDA. To our top story, where a US official told CNN that 4 Russian military helicopters have arrived at a Syrian airbase that Russia is beefing up, adding to the mobility of the Russian forces there. The 4 helicopters also appear in satellite images provided to CNN by All Source Analysis. The company said they were taken on Tuesday and show Bashar al-Assad International Airport in Syria with newly paved areas, tanks, and other equipment. U.S. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter has urged Secretary of State John Kerry to lead discussions with his Russian counterpart, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, on Russian military moves into Syria. Kerry told CNN's Elise Labot that Lavrov assured him that the Russian plan is to fight ISIS. Pentagon officials say they believe the current Russian buildup will continue for several more days, but then Russia may finally signal its intentions and strategy during the upcoming UN General Assembly. How to deal on a military basis with the Russians will be among the first challenges for General Joseph Dunford, who takes over as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff later this month. Dunford is expected to travel to the Middle East within weeks of taking office. To Coptic Papacy News. On the 12th of September 2015, His Holiness Pope Tawadros II started his pastoral care visit to Sweden and Denmark. His Holiness was accompanied by His Grace Bishop Thomas, Bishop of El-Qusia and Mayor Diocese, Upper Egypt, and His Grace Bishop Kyrillos, Bishop of Milan. During his visit, His Holiness Pope Tawadros II met with some officials as he visited some churches and headed the liturgy in Gothenburg. In Denmark, the Egyptian ambassador, Mrs. Selwa Mofid, received His Holiness in the headquarters of the Embassy of Copenhagen. The next pastoral care visit of His Holiness is scheduled for the 1st of October to the U.S., where he is planning to visit the Diocese of the Southern United States, the Diocese of Los Angeles, and Southern California and Hawaii. Clashes between Arab youths and Israeli police broke out last Sunday at one of the holiest sites in the world for both Muslims and Jews. The confrontation at the Al-Aqsa Mosque complex in Jerusalem began just hours before the start of the Jewish New Year. Israeli police said they received intelligence on the eve of Rosh Hashanah that masked demonstrators were barricading themselves inside the mosque, while erecting barriers outside to prevent anyone from entering. Israeli officers said that rioters hurled rocks and fireworks at them in an attempt to keep them at bay, but the confrontation spilled from inside out onto the streets of the old city of Jerusalem. The Palestinian news agency told a different story, reporting that Israeli forces stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound shortly after dawn prayer, leading to the injury of several worshippers. President Barack Obama has stated that the image of a lifeless toddler who washed ashore on a Turkish beach after he and his family fled Syria should prompt action from the rest of the world, including the United States. Obama said, every country needed to do more to help alleviate the crisis, and that the United States would accept at least 10,000 Syrian refugees in the next fiscal year. He also said the U.S. would try to eliminate some bureaucratic hurdles towards entering the country. But the White House contested that certain mandatory steps should not be lifted for Syrians looking to enter the United States. During the wide-ranging town call, Obama was questioned by military members about a wide range of global issues, including recent reports that Russia is escalating its military presence in war-torn Syria. U.S. officials have said it's unclear what Moscow's intentions are as it builds up its troop levels inside Syria. And still in the U.S., as Republican presidential candidates lay into President Obama's track record, Obama was quoted as saying, "Despite the perennial doom and gloom that I guess is inevitably part of a presidential campaign, America is winning right now." Obama said at a meeting of the Business Roundtable in Washington, "America is great right now. We can even do better." He cited job creation, the rising stock market, and millions of Americans who now have health insurance as examples of a successful presidential run. Obama said it was imperative that Republicans in Congress pass a government spending measure before the end-of-month deadline to avoid a shutdown, calling for the standoff over funding for Planned Parenthood bad policymaking. The UN General Assembly adopted a resolution this week allowing what it officially recognizes as the State of Palestine and the Vatican to raise their flags outside of the UN headquarters and UN offices. In a unanimous 119-8 vote, with 45 abstentions, the General Assembly approved a move allowing the two non-member observer states to raise their flags, following the flags of member states. Over to Yemen, where on Wednesday, according to witnesses, unidentified masked men burned a church in Aden, the largest city in southern Yemen. The AFP reported witnesses as saying flames rose from St. Joseph's Catholic Church, located in the Crater district, one of the most important parts of the city, after it was vandalized. Mortaz al-Maisuri, local resident, said the fire rose from the church building after unidentified masked men set fire to the church. A security official in Aden said the perpetrators are extremists and may be members of Al-Qaeda. According to witnesses, the church was vandalized on Wednesday when trespassers destroyed a cross on the church and a cross on its altar. The Church of St. Joseph was built in the 19th century and is one of the few churches remaining in the city. A small number of Christians, mostly foreign workers and sailors, still practice their religious rituals in Aden's few churches. Western countries have betrayed Middle Eastern Christians, according to Patriarch Ignatius Yusuf of the Syriac Catholic Church. He said, "We are facing the risk of extinction, but they abandoned us," at the closing session of the Conference of the Defense of Christians organization, which was held in Washington over the past 3 days. He continued, "We are facing destruction of our people and our identity, and the risk of extinction from the land of our ancestors." He added that the airstrikes are not enough to defeat the Islamic State, and help must be provided to the Iraqi and Syrian armies in this war. The Patriarch called on politicians in America and Europe not to waver in their defense of human rights, especially freedom of religion, so that Christians can continue in their ancestral lands without being relegated to dhimmi status. He called on the Gulf states, especially Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey, to stop financing terrorist organizations. He thanked the Kurdish government for hosting minorities, including the Sunnis and the Shiites, fleeing the Islamic State. Over to Australia. It's being described as front stabbing, a brutal attack on his leader by Malcolm Turnbull, who has long coveted the job of Prime Minister of Australia. Rumours that Cabinet and backbench government MPs were once again worried about Tony Abbott's performance had been circulating since late last week. A leaked list of ministers Mr. Abbott wanted to dump reportedly angered many in the Cabinet. Then on Monday, 2 public opinion polls conducted by Australia's 2 major media companies showed there was likely to be a sharp swing away from the government at a by-election in Western Australia due this Saturday. When the previous Communications Minister, Mr. Turnbull, announced his intention to challenge Mr. Abbott on Monday afternoon, he did not mince his words. He told journalists if Mr. Abbott remained in power, the Liberal National Coalition would lose the general election due mid-next year. He said the Prime Minister had failed to provide economic leadership, had lost the confidence of the business sector, had failed to explain to the public the challenges and opportunities the nation faced, and had developed policy on the run. Mr. Turnbull successfully deposed Mr. Abbott of his prime ministry with a cabinet vote of 55 to 44. The final forensic report stated that the handwriting of Mariam, the Coptic student who got 0% in her final secondary school exams, matches the handwriting on her answer sheets, which were ruled authentic. News outlets leaked the final report, which caused a shock to Mariam when she learned the decision while she was hosted by a television show. Mariam's family revealed earlier that an advisory technical report proved the occurrence of fraud in Mariam's sheets and refuted the report of the initial forensic report, which according to Mariam's family was defective. The family of this Coptic girl was surprised that the total of her high school grades this year was 0%, although she is known for academic excellence. When they submitted a grievance to Asyut examination controller and checked the answer sheets on July 23rd, they found all her sheets were replaced, but the student's name and seat number remained. Mina Malak, Mariam's brother, said that the report that was prepared voluntarily by Dr. Mona Gohari, professor of forensic medicine at the Faculty of Medicine, stated that Mariam did not write the answers on the English and French answer sheets, but they were written by someone else. Among the responses to the case of Mariam, known as the Student of Zero, His Grace Bishop Suriel, Bishop of Melbourne Diocese in Australia, mentioned on his Twitter account that the injustice against Mariam is criminal and the education minister should be sacked immediately. He also welcomed her to complete her education in Australia. You might have expected Lionel Messi to take the headlines, but the Barcelona star found himself well and truly overshadowed as his team were held to a Champions League draw at Roma on Wednesday. Although the holders took the lead when Luis Suarez headed home and Ivan Rakitic across from close range early on, the moment of the night, and surely of the season so far, was yet to come. Messi, making his 100th appearance in the Champions League, later hit the crossbar as Barcelona went in search of a winner. Our final story for this evening: an experimental drug that was given to the first American treated in the United States for Ebola has been granted fast-track approval by the FDA, according to Leaf Bio. Leaf Bio is the commercial arm of MAP Biopharmaceutical, the makers of the drug. A press release posted on the company website proclaimed this as an important milestone, which brings them closer to eventually gaining FDA approval. This is a change from the previous status as an orphan drug, which provided incentive for development of the drug financially and otherwise. Brantley was the first human to receive the drug after becoming ill with the virus that has infected 28,256 people and killed 11,306 since March 2014. And that's all for CYC News for today. Stay tuned for more Christian content on CYC. I'm Angie Victor, and from the CYC studios in Sydney, Australia, good night and God bless.